motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate on me.
Good evening. In Common Sense and the Devil's Advocate. Did I say advocate? Oh my God, I think I did. Advocate. Sorry.
You got something on the brain.
There's not much up there, that's for sure. But what are we? We're a place where we like to talk about salacious topics in a way that hopefully forces us and everybody listening to think outside of your comfort zone, or at least from a different point of view for a few minutes. And again, I'm here as always with my faithful drinking buddy, Michael.
Hello, loves.
So, Michael, in today's episode, we're gonna dig into a kind of a dark subject. What we're gonna talk about tonight is why, in society, do we seem to value one life more than another? Sometimes one more than the many. So, in the wake of all the nastiness that took place in the last couple weeks, we're gonna dig into this topic. And unfortunately, this type of stuff comes up more often than it should. Now, for everybody out there that's already thinking about where we're going to go with this, we're not here to trash anyone. We do not support violence in any means. And at least know personally, I view harming somebody else just because they're different from you, have a different opinion, or any piece of that is a complete act of cowardice.
Totally agree.
Everything that happened with the whole Charlie Kirk thing, that dude was a coward pussy. I'm sorry. He could have gotten his facts together and gone up there and forced himself into a platform and debated them properly like a man. Might not have been easy to set up, but there's a lot of other ways than violence from afar. It's not even like back in the old days where you just bring out fisticuffs and get in a fight. Hell, back in the 80s and 90s, a lot of the times you'd end up being friends with the person a couple of days later.
Usually, yeah.
It was, you get it all out, and then you're like, why the hell did we do that? I don't know. And, then you're buddies. Hell, I've even seen that happen with a few adults. What I want to start off with is mourning celebrities more than anybody else. All right? And we have a couple of different ways that we can kind of dig into the pro and con on this one. And this is a touchy enough subject that I think I actually want to go, let's talk one side of it for a bit, and then they'll completely flip it, and let's try to look at the opposite side of it instead of doing a hardcore debate on this one, because I don't want to step on each other's toes. There's so much for this one.
Agreed.
So I'm going to start off, if you don't mind, with an example that I've always had this one kind of in the back of my mind, because it's the first time that I can remember in my childhood where something like this stood out for me. Okay. And Michael, you are going to remember this. The year was 1994.
Ooh.
I think I want to say that's about the time me and you first got to know each other. Pretty damn close. Long time ago.
93, 94 into 95. Yeah.
Yeah. So along that time, we were young. We were teenagers. We were going through a lot. It was a big time in the music era for grunge. And a lot of that fun stuff going on. Music was interesting. It was fun. I was a big Nine Inch Nails, Pearl Jam. I always had, still always had, a little bit of moved away from like the rock and Guns N' Roses and all that, the Soundgardens and all that.
Hell yeah.
And early on in that year, one of the people considered a pioneer of grunge, Kurt Cobain, supposedly committed suicide. And it was a very sad day for music, much along the lines of, Morrison and Elvis. But what I saw with people in our high school was very interesting. I remember distraught, crying, 16, 17-year-olds just losing their mind because Kurt Cobain had died. And this is what's even more interesting, that it goes this way, and knowing how much it would extrapolate with today's day and age, is this is, we're talking pre-internet, pre-cell phone. So it was all, it was word of mouth. It was not all over the news, in your face, social media, none of that. And it was already pretty big. There weren't, I don't remember any crazy memorials, but I remember people losing their mind over this.
I remember that as well.
And the thing that always stuck with me is I remember hearing this and going, wow, that sucks. I wasn't a massive fan, but they had some good music. So it sucks for the genre and future stuff that this guy could be putting out. But if my mother had done the same thing that same day, Kurt Cobain wouldn't give him two shits about her. And how many other people committed suicide that day? I'm sure the stat is astronomical, right?
Yeah, even that first week after the news hit. Absolutely.
But even in general, sorry, I am looking something up here for us to give us a little bit of a stat to kind of go on that. So approximately, how crazy is this? Approximately 2,000 people die by suicide every day. That in itself is very sad. That's another whole level of stuff we could get into that I'm not going to do. I do not want to do that. But again, based on an average stat, 1,999 other people committed suicide along with this one person. Almost none of the people had ever had any formal contact, interaction with that person, and they lost their mind. They were saddened beyond belief. And this happens again. Prince, the Pope. It happens across the cosmos of our world, and it happens often when we see this happening. And there are people, people react with a deeper sense of sadness for some more than others in that famous realm. No, and again, I swear, I think I've seen people get just as sad over someone they've never met versus a actual family member that's passed away. That's where
True.
it really blows my mind. So I guess let's dig into your thoughts on why that is, and let's go for a few minutes on why that's okay.
The okay part isn't that would be semantical, I think. So whether it's okay or not, that belongs to the person. But I think the reason why people lose their shit over somebody that has such a podium in life, it's kind of like, your favorite grandparent or something like that. Somebody that's touched your soul in such a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Music does that for a lot of people. I'm more along the lines of you. It's like, I like when Ozzy passed away. I was like, oh, that sucks. Different scenario, of course, because you lived a nice long life.
True.
But at the same time, some people, as you were pointing out, were completely destroyed by this
Yeah.
because it was the loss of an era and a loss of an icon and a music icon. But I think music itself sometimes touches people really deep, depending on what they're going through. And
Yep.
just like, the grandparent that taught you so kind of things, or your dad or anything like that brought you into their life and gave you some kind of piece of wholesome feelings, maybe that's why. um, I don't know that I've ever lost my shit over a celebrity of any kind, whether it be like, I think the one that hit me the worst was Robin Williams. And I didn't lose my shit, but I definitely I kind of got bummed out about that.
Yeah, I agree that I've seen a lot of them, where it's happened, and that's a great example. I thought his and a few others in that level was just like, why? Why?
Yeah.
And and again, there are different circumstances for all these, right?
Hmm.
There is the person that dies of natural causes. You're not overly surprised by it if it's an older person. When it's a young
Like
one, you're
Ozzy.
like, yeah. When it's a young one, you're like, wow, I didn't know they had those kind of issues. If we're sticking with kind of the musician type, look at Prince and even Michael Jackson. They were medicating themselves in a way to get on with their life that you know not the whole world really knew about. You figured their life was just all amazing and all this, and now maybe they're stressed out because they have to always perform at such a level. But why were they at that level? That it sucks to hear they were sad enough that they needed, either X, Y, and Z of medication to get by, or that they, took their own life. And I listen to a lot of older music now. Soundgarden, Alice in Chains pops up, and I'm just like, man, these guys were so talented. Linkin Park, why people adored them, practically worshiped them for their raw talent. What was, that's where you're like, what was so sad that they had to take their life? And what I think what comes out of a lot of those ones is instead of the memorialization of a different type of celebrity, people do actually dig into that. And the family tries to use, you know, the suicide ones as learning examples for the rest of the world a lot of times, right? And it
Yeah.
ends up being, yeah, they start charities and it goes toward, Robin Williams had a huge one for that. And again, then here's where it starts to bother me a little bit if we're going on both sides. Okay. I
Hmm.
guess I was staying with the pros of this. So maybe I should stick to that for a second, even though I want to get into the other. But you're right though. When someone dies suddenly in any form that touched your soul in some manner, there is a reason for mourning. I personally believe it should also, more than anything, be a lesson for learning. How did this happen? Why did it happen? Again, it all goes in different snares. When somebody like Charlie Kirk or Kennedy or, Abraham Lincoln is literally murdered,
Or an
assassinated.
idea.
Yeah, exactly, just for their beliefs. And yeah, there's a lot of conspiracies on some of those. Kennedy, there was supposedly so much of a power play in different ways that, that's why there's all the theories around it. But again, it was for beliefs these people had, and people were afraid of where that belief may or may not go. Yeah, it's tough. And trying to go into this in a way to where it's like you should continue to support the person that you supported, if those are your beliefs and you followed along that, then you should continue down that path and not change your ways just because of what happened.
Well, I think when it comes like the death of, we'll say, Kurt Cobain, a lot of people like to take celebrity and they install it in a piece of their life they're missing. I knew a lot of people that
Yes.
we went to school with that freaked out when that had happened. You knew they were some lost souls.
Hmm.
They weren't your, I hate that stereotype, but they weren't your normal suburbanite kid. They were your outcasts. Those are the most people that I saw losing their shit. The people that were missing something in their lives that like you and I were fortunate enough to have at
Yeah.
home or with other family members. But that's usually the people that I saw losing their stuff at school. Was you just knew that there was something missing in their life. And I think a lot of people take that celebrity and pin it in their life to fill a void, maybe. I
I
don't
was
know.
thinking I think that's, yes, 100%. I like the way you put that. And I think that fits. I still, if we're going with the music example, music is a way that that I still use to release, to get away from the world.
Same.
You pop on some good music and it can make um, so much of the fuzz in life go away for a while. Music, podcasts, damn good conversation by a fire are the ways that you filter out those interruptions in your life that you really need to step away from. You know, music in the gym, popping together.
Oh,
You don't know what's going on in the world for a while. I mean, I used to think, an hour in a jujitsu mat, and I had no idea what was going on. It could have been Armageddon, and you for at least an hour or so, you'd have no clue, and you didn't care. Those are things that are important to have. And yes, when something that fills that void is taken away, you're gonna be sad. You're gonna you're gonna memorialize it. You're gonna go into it, and I think that is 1 billion% valid.
and on top of that, and it's not, and if, well, when you want to switch over to the cons, it would
In a
have to
second.
go, yeah, it would be that it's the sad fact that people feel that they need these people that they don't know to fill a void in their life. And are they grabbing onto something they really shouldn't be and finding, I mean, you're glad that they found something as a channel, but at the same time, it's like there's got to be a better way. So if you're feeling hurt, alone, lost, anything that music or that actor or that entertainer filled that void for, the con is that healthy to me?
Let's dig into that. Let's look on the opposite side of going too deep into the remembrance, whatever you want to really call it, of a figure that was not. Here's where this becomes difficult, right? What I want to say is that is not a focal part of your life or a physical part in your life. And I know many people out there that will use that to say, well, X, Y, and Z person was how listening to them was how I started my morning. It was how I wake up and listen to Howard Stern every single morning. And if he was killed on the streets of New York tomorrow, I would be very sad and I wouldn't have that anymore to do as part of my day. You are correct, but
Yeah.
then you fill that with something else. You don't make that your causation of life. I can only move on with my morning if I listen to X. Okay, well then now you move on to
Yeah.
Y. That's
Yeah, I
everything
wouldn't
is,
it wouldn't destroy my soul.
and that's what it is for so many. That's what I don't understand. Everything in this world is finite. So
Mhm.
anything that you're putting on a pedestal, it's gonna fall off at some point, whether you want it to or not. Either before your time or after your time, they're not always gonna be up there. And if you're going biblical, we put people up on, we don't even put them on pedestals. They are worshipped. The way we worship famous people these days is no different, in my opinion, than the way pharaohs were treated back in the day. People would do anything for them, it's kind of, I don't know.
Gross.
Yes, it is to a point. Because again, this is the biggest issue I have with it. That same person would probably not piss on you if you were on fire.
That's probably very true. But
Unless they could get more likes out of it or donations, or it would be used to better enhance themselves versus just doing the good deed. Not saying the whole world's like this, right? Not by any means is it all
or all celebrities.
100%. Exactly. There are plenty, tens of thousands that are known for being amazingly good people and don't go there. Those aren't usually the ones that are celebrated with in mass when something happens, unfortunately.
The to grab onto something so tightly that's not a physical entity around your orbit, other than just a daily like I'll listen to certain music on the way into work just to get me jazzed, ready for the day. So when I get there, I'm positive, I'm upbeat for the guys, and we can rock out the day however we have to. But if my radio stopped working, I'd probably end up, I don't know, singing to myself. I just have a different way of outlook. I wish I could touch on why people attach themselves to celebrity, or even sometimes even a family member that passes away, that they let that loss destroy them going further. So even if you go
Yeah,
personal in the family member, it's like sucks. Things happen, life goes on. But when you can't get past that, well, we're dipping into mental health then. So I don't know. I might want to tread carefully on that comment.
that's one that's a tough one we know in the whole country.
Oh yeah.
But I do see where you're going, and it's tough, yeah. I don't wanna dig into that one either. That's beyond my education level. I think I would be talking way too much out of my ass, unfortunately.
Yeah, we'd only be going by our own personal experiences, and our experiences do not
Yes.
equate to other people's experiences, and mourning is a bitch. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, it
yeah,
is.
yeah, I'm still mourning like half a dozen people, depending on the moment. It's like, wow, I kinda miss them, and
Yeah.
they've been gone for like 7 years or some shit. It's
Right? Let's not bring animals into the fact because you mourn them sometimes as much or more.
okay, that's another thing, is to keep this on the human side, because I know that a loss of a pet can actually be more soul crushing to a human than the loss of a significant other or a loved one, only because of what that pet gives that person. It's a really weird thing that I've been looking into, because we've all experienced it, the loss of a
It's
pet.
it hurts.
It's like a whole different level of hurt. But yeah, the loss of my father-in-law, the loss of your father-in-law, that's a zinger, and it stings every day.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is we both experienced those losses on different scenarios, but it still doesn't equal to the soul crushing. I don't even know what to call it, performance, or the way people took like Cobain's death back in the 90s. I didn't react like that when, say, my father-in-law passed away. I mean,
Right?
I was definitely destroyed. It was a
Yeah.
moment, but yeah, I'm with you. I don't get that. Why people feel like the world is ending
Well,
because a Kurt Cobain has passed away. Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's tough that we keep referencing Cobain, part of it is because of just our growing up, and it's easier to
Right.
reference it's ready to reference one that's far enough in the past that way you don't have to worry about really hurting anybody's
Right.
wee little feelings. But people, like, every time there's a pope that passes away. Now again, usually they're older, so people are surprised, but not massively surprised. This is a
Okay.
person that dedicates their life to a religion, to trying to spread good, especially like the last pope we had was, I thought that guy was pretty dope. He was
Yeah,
open
he was
with,
pretty dope.
he was a very, I don't want to say not liberal, conservative, but he was a very open-minded person. And he was blatant about love everybody, care for everybody, even if they're not like you. You know, he said a lot of things that, I think people were shocked by, but I think it also helped bring more people together in that thought process. But okay, so this is a man who dedicated his life, as far as he concerned, to nothing but peace and love and spreading what he's in his mind, the good word. There was nowhere near the constant madness as to what is going on with a recent, with the Charlie Kirk, who was I guess you could say political comment, but I mean,
Yeah.
he spoke to young kids in colleges, and he was, he started Turning Point. I mean, I'm not saying the guy worked his ass off. He built what he believed in. He did all this, but he wasn't walking out there with, like a Care Bear, spreading sunshine and rainbows all the time. He was spreading his
No.
beliefs. And again, like the ideology that we have out there nowadays, it's one side or another. And his was one side. And so only half of the people are going to, agree with what this person is saying. Whereas somebody like, like the Pope, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, people that literally dedicate their life to peace and, prosperity, they don't get nearly the kumbaya afterwards. There's usually like one day where, there's the funeral, people mourn and they move on.
Yeah.
They get replaced with the next pope that they vote on. And, the next saint that's out there doing whatever. People say, this person was great. I loved what they did. They might shed a few tears. Then they go on with their life. And if they truly follow that person, they go on with a life that, follows along with the teachings of that person, right?
Emulates it.
Yes. And so, but now we can find someone who's just a celebrity and we can immortalize them. I mean, this happened on 9/10. 9/11 is a day of remembrance from 9/11, an attack, thousands of lives, and even the aftermath has been ridiculous. It's still, people getting sick. But now 9/10 has been voted by Congress to be a day of remembrance now for Charlie Kirk. This is one man who spoke his beliefs and his opinions. Sure, it touched a lot of people's hearts in what he spoke or minds, but the same day, 2 kids were gunned down in school. 2 weeks or whatever, a few weeks before that, how many were shot sitting in a pew in a Catholic school that were young children? There's no day of remembrance for them.
No.
That young boy this one comes up a lot from Sandy Hook, I believe. That 12-year-old who jumped on his friend to protect him and saved his lives. I think he just got out of the hospital recently.
Yeah.
Might not have been Sandy Hook, but it was something in the last couple of years. This kid, that is a fucking hero. That is who you triumph. Why don't we have this is the shit that chaps my ass, Mike. Why don't we have a single day of remembrance for all the school shootings? Just fucking pick one day. And we'll just keep adding names to it. But
Because I'll be honest on this one, Joe, we're running out of days. Every day would be a
it's something.
Memorial Day. There was already, I think 100 school shootings this year?
But I just pick one day to recognize all of them. You don't have to be I'm not saying one for every.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Like
but one day.
President's Day kind of thing.
But there's not one day a year. There's not why isn't there we unfuck ourselves day?
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, that's the stuff that that brought me to want to talk about this topic a little bit. And again, I hate the only reason I'm going back to Charlie Kirk is because it's a fresh wound. It's just that fresh scab that's itchy.
Right.
If
And
it was
that's why we're
somebody
talking
else,
about this
trust me,
today.
yeah, we would literally swap right over to somebody else if it happened. Again, not going to badmouth the guy. We're not saying that there's anything wrong with his views or anything. But all we're saying is, what makes him more important than these young children? He was young. He was like, what, 32?
31.
31.
31.
But that, Mike, is still like 20 or more years more of life he got to have than a lot of these children that are gunned down. And those kids never even spoke a word to, what I mean? It's usually by someone that they never even meet, walk by, share the same air with. It's someone who's got an issue with the building that they're in or something that took place in there, and so they decide to go after the weakest targets, which that just makes me want to punch a fucking wall. That we don't
Um,
that we don't get up in arms as much as we should for that kind of stuff.
but this is kind of tough not to make this about because I said this to somebody at work and it was a question offered to them. I said, if you don't have the polarizing division and it might be an opinion piece, so be it, that Donald Trump brings to the table of, right wings, nationalists, things like that. If you don't have a Donald Trump, do you have a Charlie Kirk? And if you don't have a Donald Trump, you don't have a Charlie Kirk. Does Charlie Kirk still survive? That's the stuff that messes with me at night. And
Man.
the fact that somebody like Charlie Kirk existed, I actually enjoyed. There were sometimes I enjoyed watching his stuff because you watch these students get up there, and we've all been there, Joe, where you've got these kids that think that they know everything, and because they got 2 years in college that they're going to riff out and own everybody. And there were times that Charlie kind of owned them.
Yeah.
Whether I agreed with it or not, I'm like, dude, you're not making your point. You might want to, and that's what made him entertaining as far as social media went and everything like that. That's why he had such a platform. And then you've got the side of the country that is that they are the MAGA guys or the hardcore right side of things that gravitated towards that opinion. And that became their Kurt Cobain. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
but just in a different realm. Making a national holiday out of the guy? I mean, don't get me wrong. I totally disagree with everything that was done to him. I pretty much disagree with almost everything that he said. But yeah,
Yeah, it's he actually did have a couple good points. Not I'm not gonna dig into them. But there's a few that I've learned about that I'm like, okay, he's got a valid point there. And then there's some I'm like, dude, you gotta be shitting me. I would love to have this conversation over drinks because it'd be way
oh
more
yeah,
fun one on one. But anyway, so here's an interesting thing. I looked it up. So T founded Turning Point in 2012. So Trump's first presidency was 2017. So now what I don't know is between 2012 and we'll say 2016, 15, the start of MAGA, how much did Turning Point go from just being a, right wing, you know, uh, good old Republican on campus, hoorah, to full on MAGA? I don't know. I'm assuming
yeah. I
it
don't know
just, and
either.
that's probably when if I had to guess, I would say that's when it caught, like brush fire. It caught on. It was growing, and then that just helped propel it into the stardom that it became. But yeah, we take these things and we turn them into remembrances. And excuse me one second.
Mhm.
Part of the question would be in 10 years, is someone going to see a day of remembrance and go, fuck is this for?
It might take longer than 10 years because I mean, we're talking social media here, and millions of people saw that.
Yeah,
So
that's the fucked up part. That is
I mean, that was pretty harsh. That
okay. Will something like this make it, or should it make it in the history books?
I think it will. But it all depends on the subject matter. So if you're talking political violence or if you're talking gun violence, either way, or assassination against on a public figure or a political figure.
Definitely, 100% say.
Charlie Kirk wanted to be a political figure, but he was more like a Howard Stern of the right wing, in my opinion. He said a lot of provocative stuff that even some right wingers were like, "Hey, dude, you might want to back down a little bit."
But he
But
knew how to. He knew how to say it.
yeah, yeah, and people gravitate to that just like a lot of kids did with Kurt and that. Why did people hold him to such a higher standard than others? That is a mystery for the ages, man. I don't know because I am of the line of if somebody passes away, you rationalize it first. You're like, okay, why did this happen? But you and I, we sometimes don't think like normal people. I mean, because
Wait,
we think of the reality of it, and then you break it down. You're like, okay, it is what it is, and then you go A, B, C, D, and then you move on.
yes. So you said something I want to dig into for a second.
Yeah,
Why was he? Uh, oh, of course I can't remember the exact wording you said, but why was he? Why was he put on that pedestal? Why was he looked at? Why did normal people see him as such a figure to follow on? Is all I can think of
honestly,
at the moment. And so, like I said, we don't. There's people like us that don't latch on to somebody like that and will be distraught when that person is no longer what we perceive them to be. Because that's the other thing, right? Is you can even take somebody like this, and let's say he wakes up one morning and decides everything he's been saying for 10 years was wrong, and he literally flips everything. People are going to be like, what the fuck? But there's people are going to scratch their head and they're going to be like, okay, if he said that we were wrong, then we're going to do what he says now and we're going to move on there. Is there anybody out there, Mike, that if they cease to exist, that's not, your wife, your child, like literally in your immediate circle, if they cease to exist, you would be like, I guess, bothered or not really, almost like confused as to what do I do here now?
It would have to be a circumstance. So if I woke up tomorrow, and this is a dark hypothetical, but you wake up tomorrow and my wife and son are gone. That I think would throw me through a mental loop.
Okay, but these are
But
people.
people I know and love, right?
Yes, ones you
But if
don't
I wake up
spend constant, all your time with that are
right,
people you idolize, but then all of a sudden your idol goes away. Is there anybody you put on that pedestal that if they got knocked off would just
we'll break it down to even like small celebrity, like on YouTube and stuff. So I
that's
watch a couple
fine.
guys on YouTube, and I think if I woke up tomorrow and found out that a couple of these guys I follow on YouTube, they're just small time little groups. It would be upsetting, but I don't think other than immediate family, like in my very close orbit, present company included,
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I don't think anything would really destroy my universe like I saw on anyone's faces on those days, like the Kurt Cobain, the Charlie Kirks. It's like, wow, that happened. What next?
Right?
That's how I look at it. I don't understand how people tie onto it other than what I said earlier is it fills a void in their mind or their heart or something that they're missing.
Which my what's the word I'm looking for? Not sarcastic, but my, darker soul of a person would say, okay, well, this void is now open again. Now I find something else to fill it with. You know what? I quit smoking. Son of a bitch. I loved it. I had to fill that void with something.
I mean,
So what I'm saying is, when someone who quits smoking, that's a void. And
mhm.
whether it's for stress, to keep down eating, nervous tick, I could, because it
Yeah.
fucking feels great, even though it's killing you, right? But when it goes, you do fill it with something else. So there
Food.
are, right? Be it food, be it exercise, be it vaping nowadays, I guess. But the thing is, so I do understand why people would lose their shit when that void is gone. But what I cannot grasp myself around is why people continue to focus down that path instead of saying, "Oh, now I'm gonna continue on." And yeah, there was all this part of me that focused on this. Well, now I got all this free time from this to focus on other stuff. What have I been missing? What else is out there? How do I turn a negative into a positive? And unfortunately, so many of these things, we've turned negatives into more negatives, right?
Yes.
This this one is starting with if you say anything bad, you get fired, you get this and that. Rodney King was, crazy rioting, right? And the same with like George Floyd, all these crazy riots and things going on. And people will say, "Oh, well, we were peaceful for this and you were violent for that." Well, they're all different circumstances for every single one of them.
Exactly.
You cannot, and it's the way people look at certain things. The Boston Tea Party was a riot in theory, in theory, and it was just, oh, we're pissed off about taxes. Well, I'm still pissed off about taxes. But a lot of that stuff goes on. But when Prince died, no one lost their shit. They were sad as hell. His
I was
music
sad.
is gonna be gone. I was sad, but I didn't. I did not work the next day.
Yeah, I didn't leave
You
work
know,
early. Yeah, I didn't
um,
call off school.
Congress wasn't not in session for some bullshit. I'm sorry, but we have a problem, and I think social media is one of the biggest reasons that it's growing so much exponentially for this type of stuff, that everything that happens has to be dramatic.
Well, and that comes to the point of why Charlie Kirk became so powerful and popular at the same time and had such a following is we came up or our kids and the generations between us and our kids,
Yep.
obviously, there was this stagnant stench of keyboard warriors. And then you bring out a guy like Charlie Kirk that is willing to say the hard things to your face,
Yeah.
which then gave a lot of people an outlet to have the balls or the ovaries to say that shit to his face in return. I think that is might be more of what it was, that it took the keyboard warrior out from behind their keyboard and brought them face to face with that enemy.
Okay.
And had that nice little social discord of clash, but it was civilized. And the reason why, maybe the fact that what happened to him or why it happened to him, is because it took that civility that was happening, even though you didn't agree with him or you didn't matter. And it ended that. It
Yeah.
ended that discourse that was happening face to face. And I think maybe that's why it's zang a lot of people so badly, is because the social discourse that was happening on a good level, albeit one side or the other, it's now over. And now who do you think is going to step up and take
Fill that
Charlie
void.
Kirk's spot, or come up on the left side and fill a spot like that, in fear that somebody's going to have a 30-6 round for them
Yeah.
because they didn't like what they had to say? That's what makes this so tragic. And I think that might be, in my opinion, why, like, a person like me that didn't agree with hardly anything the guy ever said, I took that kind of hard. I was like, did I tell you about the parcel deliverer? I'm not going to name a company that came into work, and the day after it happened, he came in, absolutely busted into our office to have us sign for packages. And he was absolutely losing his shit on how the Dems are going to get theirs. And then I had to calm him down. I was like, whoa, I'm sitting at my desk and whoa, bro, no, chill, chill. What's your problem? I'm going to get that fucking gun and I'm fucking this fucking, they want a fucking war. And I was like, whoa,
Oh,
let's take a
see,
breath. I go, you are doing exactly what this person wants to happen that made this happen. So I didn't talk him literally off a ledge, but psychologically I felt I did, because
yeah.
5 minutes of me telling him, this is what these type of people want you to do. They want you
Right.
to pick a side. They want you to start popping cap in people's asses to go with their side or the other. I go, dude, this is not right. Take a breath. And then
Well,
he ended up calming down, apologizing. He's like, look, I was just upset. I'm like, understandable. I go, but you need to check that stuff at the door, bro, because
that
that's what they want.
they want to incite that riot. Well, nothing creates a crowd quite like a crowd.
Yeah.
To quote the old Soul Asylum song.
Yeah. But a guy that I don't think followed Charlie Kirk at all. At all. But it was a left and right thing. And he automatically turned it, if the Democrats want this shit to go down, I'm like, whoa, bro. I'm a registered Democrat. What, you gonna fight me? Come on.
Like the guy in this instance, I think the guy who supposedly pulled the trigger, it doesn't sound like he was one or the other. Honestly, he was his own mindset, and
Right.
was he
grew
just
up
trying
in
to
MAGA.
stoke the fire in one way or the other, right? And sometimes that's the worst, is when you're, let me attack my own because I know what it's going to do,
Right.
throwing
It's
kindling
kinda
on
like
fire because you want it to get bigger, not the opposite.
the attempted assassination on Trump. The guy was a Trump guy.
Oh, really?
I know.
I did not know that.
Yeah. But why? And it goes along with mental health. But we're getting away from the subject.
Yeah, we can go, the mental health one is one we can go way.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah, that's a deep one. That's a one that can go with 8 billion different arguments.
Oh yeah.
But what we're trying to grab our hands around is, and again, I think a lot of it does have to do with the day and age, where we grew up, when we grew up. Again,
Social media.
yes, we are a generation that, if you missed the bus, you walked home. If you went home and your parents weren't there, you knew where the hidden key was. You went inside and you waited. You never had to worry about Debbie down the street calling the cops because Sandy wasn't home for her kids. And it's, nowadays that doesn't exist. So part of this, it may just be harder for us to wrap our mind around the fact that it wasn't like that when we were children. I want to say that. I know many people my age and even somewhat older that still get crazy bent out of shape when this kind of stuff happens. And, we're going, it's weeks later, and they're still talking about it. And you're like, enough. Okay, let's please move on. It's, and it's going to happen again. It's a constant
Unfortunately.
cycle. It is a cycle that will continue to happen with one thing or another, be it a figure that's just verbal, more children, more, we know that's going to happen. Smugglers. We can go on here forever, right?
Yeah.
The point that we're getting at is why? Why do why does the masses elevate some people and care less about others?
And I'll go back to, I think it has to do a lot with void filling and emotional
Attachment?
attachment, misfortune, somebody that speaks for them, that says what they want to say, but they don't know how to say it kind of thing.
I like that, Mike. I think, we've all got pieces in our life that we wish were a little bit different. No one's got a perfect life, and there's always something out there that you gravitate toward that you wish you were more like this, or you're jealous because they have this, or
You
it
envy
just
them because they can do that.
exactly. And you don't, because we don't know what's missing in that person's life, that we only focus on that little piece. And it might be that, it might be the 0.0001% of your nuance that you think is missing. And you gravitate toward that. And maybe when people see it gone, they don't know any other way to react. Is it
Especially
good?
nowadays.
Yeah. And there's this platform that everybody can be listened to, type it out, push
Right.
it out, say whatever you want. Um, I don't really care what it is weird that people are getting fired over opinions. That's kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
But that's a different one. That's already lots of lawsuits waiting to happen, I would assume, out there.
Oh
But
yeah.
it is a different world. You're able to voice that opinion more. You're able to feel it more. I hate that anyone has that void in their life that they need someone else to fill. But hell, I wouldn't be married if I didn't have a void, right? Because
Same.
my void is companionship. If not, I'd probably be bugging people like you way too much if I was alone. Hey, hello,
I
hello, I'm
I
lonely.
I'd be okay with that, Joe.
But, I don't, listen, I don't hate people for how they feel. I don't, I don't hold any grudges about them.
Just want to
I
understand it.
want to understand it, and I also want people to understand that not everybody puts people on a pedestal like you do, and you have to realize some people just move on with their life and don't give a shit. It's not pretty. It's not a nice way to say it,
Nope.
but it's like people arguing politics on social media. My opinion, you make your point just as much as a bumper sticker. I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna say something probably off color in my car that no one else is gonna hear about
Behind
how
my
I
steering
feel.
wheel.
And it might be something as simple as that's a dope ass bumper sticker, but why'd you put that on your car? I don't care. That's you type it out there in Facebook, okay, but you don't have to put it in all of our faces. Social media is to be sociable, to share your life and all that, not to continue to parade shit in other people's faces.
Yes.
But hey, I think we beat this one. I
It was
dare
a
I
good
say
one.
to yeah,
It was a tough one.
it was. It goes a lot of different ways. It's a different one for us to talk about because, again, we look at life differently than some people do. I would have loved to find somebody we could bring in on here one day, Mike, that could tell us why things like this impact them so much and what it is how they will move forward when something like this happens. And I think, if anyone's out there that's big into that, and again, you do not need to be a Charlie Kirk fan.
No.
You could be George H.W. Bush could have been your favorite president, and when he passed away, you didn't know what the fuck to do. I think this is something we can probably come back to at some point in time if we
Oh, I
find
guarantee we
somebody
will.
if we find somebody that can that we can bring into that realm of that. And dare I say, I don't want to say cult, but unfortunately, sometimes it does turn into that, right?
It does feel culty.
The key is how far does it go, and it can become the fear that I have with this type of stuff is the people that are so ingrained in it, and it's not even a void that it fills. It's something that becomes a driver, and they feel they now
Right.
must react. The Manson cults where they did stuff
Right.
because someone told them to. Clean hands. I just convinced you. And that's where this stuff gets scary. Maybe, again, that's the difference that we have is we're just the type of personality where we don't want to be led down a path that we don't believe is our own, of our own making. And so we don't feel that miss. I don't know, but I think it's something we could have a really good conversation with a couple other people to explain to us what we don't see.
Yeah, and if anybody's out there that has that experience, that a celebrity lost of any kind hits you like a ton of bricks and has destroyed your life in some way, pop on, let us know, and we'll get you on.
Yeah.
We'll have a
Look,
chat.
definitely looking forward to it. This brings up a lot of other stuff that we could talk about, and it's all going to happen on another week. Miss you, everybody. Stay safe,
All right.
stay happy.
Well, love y'all.
Peace out.